Hello, welcome to my week in astronomy. A story I found interesting in the world of astronomy and astrophysics this week. Or actually this time more biology, the analysis of space-grown lettuce. Our story starts way back in 2015. Astronauts Kamer Yui, Scott Kelly and Kjell Lindgren ate some lettuce. Specifically, some red romaine lettuce, of a type which gardeners give the name outrageous. It was part of a set of experiments referred to as veggie, to try and grow and eat food in space. And they succeeded. Lettuce was a good start for growing food in space. It grows fast, this sort they could prepare in about a month from start to dinner. It's easy to grow, compared to a lot of other foods, and it's quite common. We know a lot about it from farming on Earth. So why? Well, because it's important to be able to grow food away from Earth. At the moment, our astronauts mostly rely on freeze-dried food, but there's a key point which has been known to biologists for a long time about nutrition. We rely on food for some specific chemicals often referred to as essential, which basically means our bodies can't make them, so we rely on our food for them. There's also, quite simply, elements that we need to get into us to make the things that make humans. But a lot of these don't just stick around nicely forever, waiting for us to eat them in our freeze-dried food. You need to keep stocking up fresh. And of course then if you want to travel long-term, you really could do with growing things. In fact, those of you with a knowledge of naval history might be having some memory recall about lack of vitamin C leading to scurvy and British ships stocking up with limes, because while they didn't know about it like we do today, they noticed eating the fresh fruit helped keep it at bay. Now, that's slightly different. Our astronomers probably won't be getting scurvy anytime soon, but the broad concept is similar. Relying on stored food can cause health problems. And we need to get some fresh produce into our astronauts if we're going to be sailing away from Earth for long periods of time. Say if we wanted to set up on Mars or send a space station further into the solar system. Of course, another point about this is it's impossible to be self-sufficient in space if you rely on a resupply of food for Earth. For long-term space travel, and if we're to survive for long periods away from Earth, we could really do with that self-sufficiency rather than relying on continuous transport of food from here to there. But that was 2015 that they ate that lettuce. Why now? Why do I bring it up now? Well, because the paper's out. What I mean by this is, when the astronauts had their space lettuce, some was bagged up and sent to Earth. And there was also an Earth-grown control. Growing lettuce in similar conditions at the Kennedy Space Center, trying to recreate roughly the conditions that were happening there by taking measurements of, say, humidity and temperature, and growing in a similar device back on the ground, so we could test the difference between the space lettuce and the Earth lettuce. This is useful. Sure, having the astronauts eat a tiny bit of lettuce is interesting, but that alone can't tell you if it's a good idea to use it to feed astronauts long term. And there are potential problems that could, in principle, affect space-grown food. One example is nutrition. Is it rich in all the good stuff Earth lettuce is rich in? Will we actually be able to use this to feed our astronauts healthily long term? Will this actually solve the problem we want this to solve? Another point is microscopic life. You see, plants, when they grow, end up with a wide variety of microorganisms growing on them. And this is fine, but of course, what if the unique conditions of space mean that a bacteria type which doesn't necessarily do very well on Earth, or be found in a high abundance on Earth lettuce, suddenly became very prominent in the environment of space, flourishing on your space vegetables? And what if that one, which we usually don't bother about on Earth, is harmful to humans? So there's quite a few interesting problems that growing vegetables in space could have, and we need to analyse the similarities and differences between Earth-grown controls and space food to make sure we're not doing anything silly. And so that was what was out recently. That was what happened this week. The paper Microbiological and Nutritional Analysis of Lettuce Crops Grown on the International Space Station was published in the journal Frontiers in Plant Science. It studies the space lettuce and the Earth lettuce. I'll give a link to it in the description. And Quick note here, biology isn't my speciality. I can't analyse the details very well, but it's a well-written paper with a good abstract, so I can sort of pull the main points out, I think. They used what are called heterotrophic plate counts. They're often used to do tests of water, actually. And there are a range of tests to estimate the populations of bacteria and fungi present. They also did specific tests for a wide range of human pathogens, stuff that could cause problems for us. And they have molecular characterisation to work out what bacteria are around. So between this, they get a reasonable idea of the microbial life of both populations of lettuces. They also survey the elemental differences in the plants, for example, levels of iron, potassium, calcium, magnesium, stuff that we would want to know about if the space lettuce was unusually high or unusually low in them. So with all that worry, what did they conclude? Well, in fact, very good news. The search for the human pathogens, things that cause a lot of problems, turned up negative. That's not to say space food is fine overall, but it's a really good thing that our first tests show this. In fact, the bacteria content of the space and Earth samples was very similar. In terms of elemental composition, they note some differences, but remember the size of each sample was small. We don't want to be too hasty in this, and there was nothing so incredibly different as to be worrying yet. And to leave you on a high note, I'll finish with a quote from the paper. At the end of their abstract, when they've presented their main findings, they say, "This study indicated that leafy vegetable crops can produce safe, edible, fresh food to supplement the astronauts' diet and provide baseline data for continual operation of the veggie plant growth units on ISS." So that's what the authors of the paper say. And it seems like they're doing quite a good job being right on that. The space lettuce, from the results they've gathered, looks like it's all right and that this is a good way to go forward. So what's next? Well, realistically, what's next is try and grow more and more different things. We're already trying to grow things other than lettuce in space. Maybe in future we'll get to a point where we can rely on things that we can grow in space to basically keep a human alive. Long term, that would be great, where freeze-dried meals only provide an addition to what we can grow. But that's a long way off in the future. At least all I can say for now is things seem to be going well. We've made the first steps in the right direction, and the careful and considered testing of the steps that we've done has concluded that things have gone well. So, with that good news, till next time, goodbye.